Hail Satan! The elves had gone too far. They created tall temples devoted to the absurd, monsters of concrete designed to scrape the sky. They had usurped the role of the gods, and took over their galaxies and spread mortality to another two. They flagrantly mocked the rituals of the gods, and even developed cults of the desecrator. They tempted fate, this greatest civilization known to our cosmos. They purposefully rearranged the stars, hoping to unseat reality itself. First, they started with the introduction of the planet of Yugoth in the Oort cloud of our solar system. They went further and almost succeeded, and a mad creature from beyond had come through. Sylvise had no choice but to drown the world in blood. Dwarves drowned in their holds during the blood flood. Shikaswadas implored Siddiq to act. So, he collapsed their holds and cut them off from the surface. Only the few scions of Sarek would walk the surface until the fourth slave of the third dusk, when dwarves would finally reintegrate themselves. Thus, for this time, the odd surface dwarf was seen as a mystic, a craftsman, or some other such powerful person. Never a part of the tribe, but a valued member of it. With the passage from the second to the third age, Quetzalcoatl could no longer serve as the second Tonatia. Tezcatlipoca, aspect of Kunirama, who was still upset over his usurpation, laughed and laughed and laughed at Quetzalcoatl, who is Kukulkan, who is also Apollo. Quetzalcoatl believed that the ancient elves actually raised good points. He thought Tezcatlipoca was actively encouraging their irreligiosity, either as a cruel joke or as a way to undermine his authority. So, Quetzalcoatl approved of the blood flood, but this was his last act as the Tonatia. He could not stand the shame of the world drowning under his watch. The Citlalin elected that Tlaloc should become the third Tonatia. At this time, he was married to the Nephilim. Xochiquetzal, Chalchiotlique, aspect of Anahita, who is the sister and future wife of Tlaloc, took pity on the elves. It is said her cries mixed with the blood flood, and she turned to the Terran elves of the Bloodlands, who were loyal to her, and made them into termites and fish. Now they would be spared from Sylvise's wrath. Similarly, the Vedas took elven immortality away from their followers, but replaced it with a form of body swapping. For Sylvise had a special rage reserved for his creation. Aoife protected her dark elves, and nostalgia for the Wanderer spared the lunar elves. But all others, the gods needed to change them, even if just on a technicality, in order to escape Sylvise's wrath. The rulers of Sinai lost all of their lands except the immediate lands of Huasha. Even Huasha was altered, though. Their capital cities were more or less simple palaces. Instead of government in the countryside, it was more like tribute-taking from primitive hunter-gatherer bands who regarded the then-rulers as semi-divine. In many cases, they did not even meet their masters. Rather, spirits would command them to leave their soul tablets and tributes at certain locations. These dead drops would be teleported to Huasha, where another band would bring them before the capital cities. Obviously, this was not nearly enough to support the population that existed before, and the flood had killed many. During the dawn and day of the Third Age, Huasha never really progressed beyond the royal family and a few retainers. In the 643rd year of the Third Age, Yao invited a blood elf named Shun, a mighty hero of a band just beyond the Ley, to rule in Huasha with him and help him cope with the consequences of the blood flood. They employed a man named Gun, whose son was Yu. Yu had used his knowledge to secure the loyalties of the spirits and ensure the philosophical and spiritual importance not only of Huasha, but of the office of the sovereign. Shun was so impressed that he gave Yu the throne. Yu passed on his lordship to his son, and is considered to be the founder of the Xia dynasty. This dynasty produced 17 leaders, and was ended in 2650 fourth slave of the third dusk. This means that the dynasty had lasted for 861,254 years. The long reigns of the Xia dynasty led to much conflict and kin strife, creating very intense and upset spirits. Never has a dynasty in Cristo ruled so long, and it is thought they could only do so due to the nature of the Third Age. Enki, who is an aspect of Neptune, could not agree with the blood flood, and went to his holy city Shurappak. There he warned King Ziusudra. There was a Nephilim named Manu, son of Surya, aspect of Pilar, who was living in Cristo during the Second Age. Matsya, the first Dash-avatar of Vishnu, born during the war in heaven, saved Manu from the blood flood and brought him to heaven. Today, all the Nephilim of Svarga, plane of the Hindus, are descended from him. Enoch, who became Metatron, had sired Methuselah, who sired Lamech, who sired Noah. El Elohim gave Noah the location of a secret ark, which would shield and protect him. Noah and his family waited out much of the Third Age in occultation, as Yahweh had plans for him that were at odds with the gods' plan. You see, Allah knew that astrologically there would be a time of mortality after the direct dictatorship of the gods, and planned to be a part of that through the offspring of Noah. Quite possibly, Allah also feared Noah would fall victim to the blood flood. Noah would be released in 2838, forced slave of the third dusk, the 130th year of the Trojan War, and he would be directed to join Lord Nimrod. Noah had with him his 2 wives, Noria and Waliga, and his sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and Yam. However, Yam refused to enter into the ark and died. Waliga had not gone into occultation during the ark, but disobeyed the instructions of the angels. Her curiosity got the best of her, and so she wandered the ark all alone, but she became lost. Soon, an accident pinned her to the ground. She cried out for help, but none were there. She died. But while Yam and Waliga's death were due to disobedience, not all of Hashem's followers were even given the chance to sin. There was once a Nephilim who, shortly after the time of Lord Rama, freed the city of Iram from ancient elven rule. This lord created vast defensive pillars of both physical and magical import, and managed to keep his city-state autonomous for the rest of the Second Age. Militarily, this Nephilim was second only to the angel Michael. He was friend to both the Cainite and Sethite lines, and though he was not a perfect worshipper of YHWH and engaged in a conspiracy against him, he was ultimately faithful to his father. He went so far as to even banish Iblis, and acknowledged that the Adamite line was the bearer of the faith. In fact, he had even invited Enoch to come and preach, and did not bemoan that he was left out of ancient rite and mystery. But Iram was not spared from the blood flood. The Lord of Iram saw his people die, his line end, and his queens drown. He who had put the mortals before him, he who had put the word of Allah above all, he who repented when Lamech killed for their covenant, he had felt abandoned by his Lord. Footnote on Lamech killed for their covenant. Quote, Lamech said to his wives, quote, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. Wives of Lamech, listen to my utterance. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for bruising me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. End quote. End quote. Genesis 4:23-24. It is a habit of the biblical Genesis to say a sentence, and then to say it once more. End footnote. So, he abandoned his Lord, and started to counter-preach against him. With Noah's line gone, none could defend Allah. He viewed the God of Israel as a cruel and vindictive demiurge, he who created flesh to punish and torture mortality. He stated that he was initiated into the secret mysteries of Enoch, and blatantly stated there he learned that Noah was a descendant not of Seth, but of Cain. He said Iblis was really the most beloved of Allah, as he refused to bow before someone other than his creator. He said these things not to illuminate, but to sow confusion. The children of Lilith and Samael came across the lands to listen to this man speak, and these demons declared him their king. Footnote on children of Lilith and Samael. These are not their literal children, but rather beings they created. End footnote. He took on the form of a winged titan, and was like a dragon. They raided the few places that worshipped Ar-Rahim in a polytheistic way. They tore down mountains and tall places he felt holy. He sent his children to compel mortals to do disastrous and sinful deeds. But finally, he went too far. In his public coronation, before his followers, he excised the part of him that felt any love for Yahweh. He wounded this creature and banished it to the spirit world. This thing would eventually come to inhabit the body of a certain Judas Iscariot, who would eventually become a wraith. It is inevitable that stumbling blocks will come, but woe to the one through whom they come. The Archangel Michael felt disgraced by the rowdy children of Lilith and their blasphemous king, who fed the mortals both lies and truths they were not ready to hear. He fought them until he fled the Materium, and then he fought them until they entered Naraka. There, he exiled them to the land of Jahannam. When Enoch still lived, angels took him to this frightful place. He said, quote, "All kinds of torture and torment are in that place, cruel darkness and lightless gloom. There is no light there, only a black fire blazing perpetually, with a river of fire flowing over the whole area. Fire burns here, freezing ice lies there. It dries up and it freezes again. There are very cruel places of detention, dark and merciless angels carrying instruments of atrocities, torturing without pity." End quote. Michael mockingly gave the Lord of Iram the name Satan, and cursed him to be trapped in ice from the breast down. With each struggle, the ice would grow colder. It would only come to melt when the beast would stop struggling against it. Satan knows that there is only one way to lift his curse, but it is a choice he will never make. He will never surrender. When coming before the throne of Yahweh, angels are required to say, quote, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole universe is full of his glory." End quote. Originally, only those of the angels who failed to do so were sent to Jahannam. However, Allah now sends all those who fail him to this place, where the children of Lilith test them. These demons and their king are in fact unwitting servants of Allah. Through temptation and tribulation, they strengthen the faithful, preparing them for the road ahead with a pure heart. Satan does not see it this way. He views himself as a torturer of those stupid enough to follow the impossibly high standards of the Lord of Deception. Quote, "They deserve it." End quote. Satan does not grant mortals power. He does not give them supernatural gifts. He lies to them. He promises them things, but does not commit. He hates the mortals. He hates that these weak things have been prioritized by gods. He does not use mortals as mortals. He does not give advice hoping to wreak havoc in a century's time. He stands for destabilization and chaos today. His aiding of the weak is a lie, and he only appears to invite the strong to oppress. In truth, he hates mortality. He hates their pride. He hates their humility. He wants nothing more than to deceive them, to trick them into willingly coming to his domain. But if he can't have that, he'll gladly take you away, for he has no law, no code, no custom. But despite all that, Satan does attract his admirers. None worship him, not really, but he has his proponents among the atheists who knows they may cross the 100th porcelain road without the assistance of a god. They admire him as he is raw power. He represents what their prideful and carnal nature dictates. He takes and does what he wants. He is oppressed, manipulated, and abused by those who seek to hold him down, to destroy his uniqueness, to bend him to their will, to reduce him to a servant, and to take away his joy. These atheists see Satan not as an entity to be worshipped, but as a symbol and a role model. Satan is the raw and untamed power within each individual. Satan is the rejection of the slave, but not of slavery. He is the will to power. He is the usurped master. To worship the gods, to bow to the king, to do the bidding of another, this is the work of a lesser. Satan is a beacon of honesty amid an ocean of self-deceit. Priest of Golgotha, out in space, like the philosophy. But they think it attracts weird folk. And besides, actually following Satan is not only moronic, as he gives no gifts and only pain. It would be a complete betrayal of their beliefs. At the end of the day, Satan is pathetic, He is caught up in a rebellion over nothing, and is so obsessed with the idea that everyone is out to get him that they now are. I have no use for those who project strength only to then whine about how they are vilified. There is another layer that some atheists have gone beyond, which only appears to full circle back to the Deocrats. Many of the things he is accused of are fine, and pearl-clutching is beneath me. But once you get down to it, Satan really is an ugly figure. Behind all that suave and all those deep thoughts, you get something fundamentally egotistical, cowardly, and petulant. He says things that he believes, but pretends to not believe in them. He says things he does not believe, but pretends to believe in them. He has no need for coherence, just glib superiority. He doesn't even realize when he's been beaten. Those who see through him and point it out, he dismisses them and genuinely believes they are just like everyone else. He's enraged with his routine. And it's not like any of his demons understand him anyway. They just like hurting people. But let us leave one last reflection from Old Nick. Nobody owes anyone anything. Debt is not a concept that exists outside of the designs of sentient creatures. The only reason you do anything is because you are a messy pulp of biological and spiritual substances, trained to behave a certain way by the complex forces of society. The only reason society trains you this way is because such a behavior and attitude brings a material and magical benefit to at least some segment of society.